this began really out of beat reporting that I did for the Post for many years on the military, but then the CIA after 9/11, and in which I and a handful of other national security reporters in the country began to uncover some of the most controversial elements of the Bush administration's so-called war on terror, and those would be the CIA's rendition flights, where they flew detainees from one country to the other, the harsh interrogation techniques that the president and his legal advisors allowed the CIA to conduct against detainees in the hopes of gaining information, and the secret black site prisons that they were put into basically disappeared off the face of the earth in order to keep them in isolation, in order to break them and to gain information from them. All of those things were part of a program, part of what is the largest covert operation program in the history of the agency, even during the Cold War, codenamed Greystone, and within that having hundreds of different compartments, all of which required lots of support, lots of cover, lots of people. And there is where you begin, or where I began, to see the development of things that didn't exist before 9/11 all around Washington. And for everything that I saw or thought I saw in the CIA world, there were 100 of those sorts of things in the military world, because the agency, even though it gets a lot of attention, is a little teeny speck compared to the elephant of the military world. And so there would be people I would meet that would have new titles from new agencies, and I knew that something was happening, but couldn't hope at that time to understand how big it was or what it meant. And my friend and colleague Bill Arkin, who lives in basically a barn in Vermont, was seeing the same thing, but in a very different way. He's a document person, obsessive compulsive by his own description, which is the best thing if you want a good researcher, someone who likes to make lists and lists of the lists and dissect the lists and all that sort of thing. So he began to see this world through his documents. And when I'm talking about documents, I'm meaning things like contracts, not just defense contracts, that's the easy stuff, but like contracts for electricity, and the fact that huge amounts of electricity were used up in certain locations around the Washington area that no one had put a name to, or contracts for ultra-secure circuits, communication circuits from one office to the other, which I'll get into that fun story later. And job boards. So the internet age had created a thing, a place where you can look and see all of the top secret jobs that government is asking to be filled. And if you were to go on that super secret site, monster.com, and put in the words top secret when you get out of here, you'll see the same thing. Probably thousands of jobs by corporations all over the country who are looking for people with top secret clearances. And they don't just stop there. There were incredible descriptions from those jobs. There were code names of programs that they were requiring people, job applicants to have knowledge of. And in some cases, there were descriptions, pretty vague, but not that vague, of what those programs might be. And so he cataloged all that and kept track of all that. And then at some point when we decided we would join forces, we said, well, how are we going to actually show this world? Or first, how are we going to find it, and how are we going to show it? And we decided that between the two of us, with me being more like the human source gatherer and him being more the document technology person, that if we combined forces, we could maybe make some inroads into describing what we saw around us. So the first thing we decided as a methodology was to not only collect all this information, but to try to put try to geolocate it, because I knew from the secret prison stories that I did that everything lives somewhere, no matter how secret it is, and no matter what kind of, I wouldn't say, well, many cover organizations, they still have an address, and the address is linked to something like a corporate record. In fact, I found the rendition flights because in Denton, where one of the planes was leased from, I came to this courthouse, or the courthouse in Boston, to find the initial corporate records on that, which led us to a group of false names, which led us to a group of P.O. boxes in the Washington area, which turned out to be the drop boxes for the CIA and a whole huge cover operation that it had. So everything lives somewhere. And so we decided that we would try to get addresses for everything. And we started slowly, but after a while, after the methodology got a little sharpened, I want to read you how quickly things moved from there. Shortly after 9/11, Bill Arkin, the co-author, began to notice numerous changes in budgets, hearings, and military directives he had discovered. Colorfully random two-word titles began to appear. Nonsensical phrases like busy lobster, fervent archer, and scarlet cloud. The names of military operations such as Brave Warrior, Justice Assured, and Freedom Eagle all made a statement about political purpose and resolve. But Titrant Ranger? What did that mean? Arkin's way of dealing with this proliferation of code names was to put them into detailed computer files and study them as a whole. He had collected more than 3,500 of these odd phrases. Skip a little bit. As massive online, here we go. At any one time on Monster.com, he could find as many as 15,000 listings for very specialized positions that required a top-secret clearance. Between 2006 and 2010, he cataloged 182,000 such job announcements in his files. And the code names in those files linked companies and agencies and activities, and the number of locations doubled, quadrupled, and then doubled again. Unknown locations appeared, obscure agencies emerged, organizations that neither Arkin nor I had ever heard of went from a few to the dozens to the scores. As the focus shifted to organizations, Arkin shifted much of his attention to contracts, which I just mentioned. The bloom of code names and job listings and addresses wasn't meaningful just for its own sake, but for something much larger. Just as the most significant thing about a spiking count of white blood cells was what the blood test couldn't see, the infection that prompted the white cells to multiply in the first place, the top secret jobs and companies and the government organizations they worked for pointed to something unprecedented that had yet to be identified in the body politic. We call this Top Secret America.